So the book of Daniel is accurate, but yet is very inaccurate. And I'll explain why. But first, greetings from my guy from Poland. Thank you for subscribing to the channel. And I ask everybody to subscribe and share the videos. So why do I say the book of Daniel is accurate, but yet it is inaccurate? Well, if you took the book of Daniel as a book that was written by a prophet during the Babylonian captivity named Daniel, then you would accept the book of Daniel as being inaccurate as far as its description of things that was happening during the Babylonian captivity, as well as the prophecies to which Daniel interpreted dreams and other things there such. Now, the problem occurs with the fact that the book of Daniel was not written by anyone named Daniel. The book of Daniel was actually written around 160, 164 BCE, and most likely by multiple authors. So the book of Daniel, if it was written by Daniel, would have had to have been written during the Babylonian captivity, which is in the 600 to 500 BCE. So there is about a 300 to 400 year difference in time frames of the events that it claimed compared to the actual event, compared to when it was actually written. So basically, the book of Daniel was written by people who weren't there, who weren't part of the Babylonian captivity and were not part of Daniel's life, did not know Nebuchadnezzar, was not privy to any dreams or anything thereof, but was written as one of the, if not the first apocalyptic writings of the Hebrew Bible. And the reason why it's one of the first apocalyptic Bibles and is different from Jeremiah and Isaiah and the others during that time frame is because the book of Daniel has the conquering of the Jews, the Antichrist element, the Savior element, and then what happens with the Jewish people living in this kingdom being established by their God. So it has all the mirrored apocalyptic writings that you will find in your Gospels as well as your book of Revelations, which the book of Revelations and the Gospels are really more Christian interpretations of the book of Daniel, but put in a later time frame. So there are some other things that let you know that the book of Daniel is not accurate. One, the book of Daniel, with it being written at the time frame that it was written, you know they already were privy to certain knowledge, certain information. They knew that the Babylonians were conquered by the Persians and that Cyrus had released them out of their captivity. But the reason why they're utilizing this time frame is because during the actual writing era, which would be the 164 BCE, the Levant was conquered by the Greeks. And when Alexander had left the Levant to pursue other conquests, he left some governors or minor kings in charge. And during this time frame, the person that he had left in charge, Antiochus Epiphanes the fourth, was incredibly cruel, and even more so cruel towards the Jewish people, would not allow them to worship in the way that they would normally worship, wouldn't allow them into the temples, all these sorts of things, and was being very cruel to them. So he was the first archetype of an antichrist for the Jewish people in that he prevented them from being able to worship their God, and was very cruel to the Jewish people, would persecute them for no reason whatsoever. The Greeks normally let people worship their gods however they chose to, but for some reason, Antiochus Epiphanes did not allow for this to occur. So the Daniel writings, and I'm not sure exactly which aspects you're asking are accurate, if you mean the whole thing, but on whole, they're not accurate in the sense of what would come or what would be. Many people will look at the statue that Nebuchadnezzar supposedly had a dream of and say that, oh, well, that represents the different kingdoms from the Babylonians to the Persians to the Greeks to the Romans. But in all actuality, it has nothing to do with It's more about the Greeks and not so much about anybody else. If you actually think about it, yes, the head represents the Persians. I mean, the Babylonians. The body represented the Persians. The legs represented the Greeks, but the feet did not represent the Romans. It actually represented how the Greeks fragmented the Greek Empire with these different ruling governors, and Antiochus being that one that they were most concerned about because he was the one in the Levant. So, therefore, our modern day interpretations of this is based on people knowing that the Romans came after the Greeks. But in between that time frame, you had the Maccabees. And because this was written during that time frame that the Maccabees were revolting, the establishment of the Jewish kingdom being this millennial kingdom of God was the mindset of the writings. And you can tell when you look at it linguistically that it was written during that time frame. And when you look at it, how Jews worshiped, you can tell that it was written during the time frame around the Maccabean revolts and not during the time frame that the Jews worshiped in the Babylonian when they was under Babylonian captivity. So, and you have to know that aspect of it too, that religion, just as it's different ways of worshiping religion today, how Christians worship today, is not the same way they worship 200 to 300 years ago. And you can see that same difference between how they worship four and in the 6 and 500 BCE compared to how they worship in the 100 BCE. So therefore you have your differences. That indicates that it was written at a different time frame. So because it was written at that time frame, it's not accurate at all. And when the Christians looked at this and they started writing the book of Revelations, they pretty much just mirrored the exact sort of thing of here's God's people are being persecuted by this antichrist figure, and then a savior comes in, saves the people, and now the people are living in this godly kingdom that is ruled by God. In the Christian version, ruled by Jesus. And the Maccabees were looked upon as this saving grace. Now, it is not to say that the Maccabees used this as a recruiting tool. That's been pretty much eliminated from most scholarly texts or understanding. So it was more about wishful thinking and hope and teaching people that even through these tough times of being under Epiphanes the Fourth, this is a time for you to stand fast in your religion and not give up on your God, because he's going to establish this kingdom. And for a short period of time, the Maccabees were able to reestablish a Jewish kingdom as well as reestablish worship in the temple. So, Daniel, is it accurate? If you're writing about something that already happened and trying to change the history of it, yes, it's accurate. But did any of it happen? Absolutely not. And it's not prophecy. It's just making things that were happening at the time look like prophecy, which is something that Christians do on the daily every time they see something natural disaster happen. So y'all have a great day. And remember always, you have to free yourself to be yourself, because your greatness is non-conditional. Good journey, good vibrations. Yeah, I know I said that wrong. We're in Phoenix. We've been on the road on this motorcycle for what 5 6 days now. So forgive me for that one. Your greatness is non-negotiable.